Sky Barbie, that is your call sign. Are we in a damn pageant or a war zone? General Marcus Richard Lanning's voice sliced through the tense atmosphere of the war room at Edwards Air Force Base, California. The room fell into a heavy silence. Lined behind him stood a formation of seasoned male fighter pilots, their eyes full of mockery, their smirks barely concealed. At the center of it all stood First Lieutenant Sarah Monroe, a 29-year-old Air Force pilot with a sharp gaze and a blonde braid over her shoulder. Her expression remained unflinching. The mission they were prepping for was deadly serious. A hostile hypersonic drone had violated U.S. airspace and was racing towards sensitive military installations. The objective: intercept and disable before it could breach deeper. But to the brass, this wasn't about real combat. It was a publicity stunt. Having a female pilot in the operation was, in their minds, a box checked for optics. The nickname Barbie Jet, painted mockingly on her aircraft months ago, was the final stamp of their disrespect. What none of them knew was that Sarah Monroe had flown over 50 successful reconnaissance missions during Operation Inherent Resolve. Her flight instincts were sharpened by years of brutal training, simulations, and real-time decisions made under fire. Her father had been shot down over Kosovo in 1999, and her mother served as a combat medic in Fallujah during the bloodiest days of the Iraq War. That bloodline ran through Sarah's veins like jet fuel, but the men in that room never cared to learn her story. All they saw was a pretty face in a flight suit. When General Lanning dismissed her, waving his hand with a scoff, Sarah merely nodded. She was not here for approval. She was here for results. On the tarmac, 3 F-22 Raptors stood ready. The roar of their engines thundered into the sky as the crews made final checks. Sarah's aircraft glinted under the late California sun, a sleek machine with a titanium-gray body and a small pink decal beneath the cockpit. A joke at first, now a quiet symbol of her defiance. She climbed in, sealed her helmet, and became what she had always been trained to be: Raptor 5, combat pilot, apex predator of the skies. The drone they were hunting had been launched from an unidentified foreign source, and it moved faster than anything they had encountered in over 2 decades, clocking speeds above Mach 5.7. If it reached NORAD territory, hundreds of lives could be at risk. Inside the war room, eyes tracked the moving blips on the radar screens. The lead pilots called for a delta formation, a standard approach. Sarah stayed silent for a moment, calculating. Her mind mapped thermal vectors, wind drag, the lag on the drone's own maneuver systems. Then she broke formation. A sharp, disorienting 9.2 G-force turn pulled her aircraft into an intercept trajectory no one had anticipated. She became a blur in the sky. Her fellow pilots shouted at her over comms, but she tuned them out. Below her control panel hung a small medal, her father's Distinguished Flying Cross. She was not going to let another target slip through. In the command room, General Lanning leaned forward. His face, once smug, now carried concern. The room was silent, the radar operator frozen. All eyes were on her aircraft closing in on the drone. Sarah did the unthinkable. She disengaged her onboard lock system and switched to manual pulse targeting, an action reserved for ace pilots with surgical precision. The move risked everything. A single millisecond of delay and she would miss. But her instincts were sharper than any software. She released the missile at the perfect moment. The radar screen blinked. Target neutralized. Silence shattered in the command room. The rogue drone had been destroyed mid-flight at over 43,000 feet. A direct hit while it was traveling at Mach 5.7. The previous record for high-speed interception during a live training simulation had stood at Mach 3.9, set 20 years earlier by a legendary test pilot. Sarah Monroe had just obliterated that record. She returned to base 20 minutes later. The hangar was dead quiet as she climbed down from her cockpit. Ground crew stared at her like she had just walked out of a legend. The crew chief dropped his wrench mid-air. General Lanning approached slowly, followed by the same pilots who had laughed at her hours earlier. He stopped in front of her, examining her with a different look now, not of mockery, but something closer to respect. "You went off book," he said. "I recalculated the threat vector faster than the system could," she replied calmly. The general gave a slight nod. "Congratulations. Sky Barbie. That night, footage from the operation began circulating internally. Pilots across Nellis Air Force Base, Langley, and even Royal Air Force Lakenheath in England reviewed the mission in disbelief. Cadets on secure forums flooded her inbox with messages of admiration. Combat instructors requested access to her custom intercept algorithm. The Air Combat Command submitted an official request for a full analysis of her engagement. By sunrise, Sarah Monroe was no longer a punchline. She was a legend. She had not shattered the 20-year record to prove anyone wrong. She did it because she had always been ready. Because even in the year 2025, being a woman in the cockpit still came with more assumptions than expectations. And because for every young girl watching, wondering if she could fly too, Sarah Monroe had just answered with a sonic boom. Sometimes the most underestimated soldier carries the biggest storm. Before we end this story, let us know in the comment, where are you watching from? If this story touched you, subscribe to the channel and hit that like button and drop a karma in the comments below.